Hey everybody, welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron, and before I get started on today's video, I just want to kind of do a little PSA. I've been having trouble with my sound on one of my cameras. I've been doing the best that I can do to correct it in editing, but it's just it was a cheap camera because I don't have a lot of money to put into that stuff, and I got 2.5 years out of it, so I can't really complain. But I did purchase a new camera, and that's why I'm saying something, because I'm gonna use the new camera to film this video to see how it goes. It's not this one, this is my GoPro, this one's fine. But the other camera I use on the tripod for time lapses and all that stuff. I'm gonna try the new one in this video. I don't know how it's gonna do, so there may be some not up to par footage on here, but I won't know until I go to edit it, and at that point it's too late. So just to let you know, if the video quality on this sucks, I'm sorry. And if it does, then obviously I won't be able to use that new camera and we'll have to try something else. Anyways, now that all that's out of the way, you guys saw the last video, you saw me cut down the frame on Evergreen, and I was waiting on a new rear end. Well, that was gonna be the last of Evergreen for a little while. It was gonna go get pushed over in a parking spot, and I was gonna do some other stuff on some other projects that were in line that I need to be working on. But I stopped by my buddy's house this morning and was talking to him about Evergreen, and he's like, well, let's go set the bed on and just see how it sits on there. And so we came over and we did that, and he's like, well, let's just throw one of them fenders you want to put on there up there to see what it looks like. And at the end of the day, the reason that we wanted to, he mentioned throwing the stuff on, and I agreed to it, is because the full width dually rear end that I was supposed to get wasn't a full width dually rear end. It was a cabin chassis rear end also, which does me no good. But my buddy was telling me, well, let's just set everything on there, take some measurements. You might be able to work with what you got. You might be able to use the rear end you already have. And I'm like, it ain't gonna work, it ain't gonna work, it ain't gonna work. Well, we took some measurements. We came over here, we roughly put everything on. We took some measurements, and the cabin chassis rear end is gonna work. And I'm finally seeing the vision that I've had in my head for almost a year come to in real life, and I'm super stoked. So I'm just sitting here talking, y'all are just sitting here getting bored. So I'll show you the passenger side that doesn't have the fender mocked up on it yet. And keep in mind, the bed is sitting on 4x4s and not mounted, and it's not squared up, and it's not right, is what I'm saying. It's just sitting on there for mock-up. And the fender that I'll show you in a minute, same way, just on there for mock-up. So it's not set in stone, it's not ready to go, it's just mock-up. But before I show you that, you thought I was gonna turn the camera around, didn't you? This video, we're gonna lower the truck because I can't permanently mount the bed and get the fenders put on it without it being lowered to where I want to lower it, because I'm probably going to have to trim the bed for the wheels for the tires to fit, and where the truck sits in the atmosphere depends on where the fenders that I'm putting on are going to go. So first thing we got to do, address the suspension. Second thing we got to do, first thing we got to do is mount the bed to make sure it's right. And then we got to address the suspension. And then we're going to have to see what we got to do with the bed. And then we can put the fenders on. Doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot. And we're going to try to get all of it in this video. So here's the bed that's not lined up right on the truck. And honestly, I don't know how it looks to you guys, but to me, like, if you look at that picture that I took and put on social media, the truck looked really, really stubby. And it still looks stubby. but putting the bed on made it look longer. And I don't have a lot of room to really get back on this side, but I'm digging it. It's cool. It's way, way, way too high. It looks like a dang 4x4, but it's what I saw. It's exactly what I saw in my head, just way too high. But anyways, I'm gonna come out here, hopefully not blind y'all in the sun. We're gonna turn this camera around, and keep in mind I said I have to narrow these fenders, but this is totally gonna work exactly like I thought it was going to. And boom, there it is with the fender on it. The fender's a little bit cocked. It kind of needs to be straightened up a little bit, but that is exactly what I had in mind. I know everybody's telling me, oh, those ain't the right fenders. You need the right error correct fenders. You need 69 to 72 fenders. Not gonna look right. May not look right to you. This is the vision that I had. So that being said, I measured between the fender and the wheel, and I have 7.5 inches. So if I take 6, and there's a 1-inch fender lip here, and if I take 6 inches out, that'll leave me a 1/2 inch of clearance between my outer tire and my fender lip, which is perfect. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bring you guys back here so the sun's not shining in your face. What I'm gonna do is take 6 inches out of this fender. So I don't know, I've been lying to girls my whole life, but 6 inches is probably about like right there. So take that out, trim it, and we'll still have that sticking out. And then I'm gonna follow the shape of the bed and come down, and then I'm gonna, when I make my cut, I'll follow the shape of the bed and leave it so this will still be down out here like so. Same thing in the front. When I cut it, we're gonna follow the body line, and then we're gonna follow the shape of the bed. Not gonna have like a full 12-inch dually fender like you'd normally be used to. It's gonna have like a 6-inch dually fender, and the side profile is what the look is all about. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it looks like from here. The whole look is here. So, and then I got some other ideas. Probably won't get done in this video, but since I'm thinking about it, I can go ahead and tell you guys, because sometimes I talk about ideas that I have in these videos, and then, you know, later on I forget about them and go, what was that other idea that I had? And I go back and watch the videos. It's kind of like writing it down without having to write down. But the fenders are going to cover at least half of this marker light back here. So what I'm going to do is trim this out just enough, and then I'm going to use that on the back of the fender for a fender marker. And I have those two. I need 2 more so I can put amber lights on the front of the fenders for fender markers. So if anybody has some old junk, the front fenders and the bed are the same. If anybody has some old junk 69 to 72 fenders or a bed that they don't mind cutting up, I need those pockets. So just the pockets, like 1 inch around the pockets and the pockets. That's all I need. If you have them, reach out to me. We'll work something out. Maybe I can buy them from you. Maybe I can trade you some merch for them. Whatever the case may be. But at the end of all this talking that I'm doing, we're doing another video on Evergreen, which isn't breaking my heart because I'm loving this little truck. But you know, we got to get back to that, and we got some parts for that, and we need to do some work on that, and we still got that. And then there's this that you guys haven't even really seen yet, and I'm supposed to be going on a little trip that I'm not gonna talk about just yet because it's not 100% set in stone. But when I go, I'm gonna take that most likely. And it needs some new tires. It needs the transmission switched out. It needs a little bit of TLC, fix a couple oil leaks, stuff like that. So I've got plenty of stuff to do, but Evergreen won the flip of the coin. So she's getting my attention today, and we're gonna get started. So like I said, first thing I need to do is get that bed mounted. So I'll take you guys over here, show you what my intentions are, and we'll go from there. So as far as squaring the bed up goes, I'm not 100% worried about that at this very second. Like, I know it's an important part, but at this very second right now, I'm not worried about it because I don't have any cross braces for the front. So I have to get something built to go up there to do its thing so that I can get the bed mounted. So I have to figure out the right height. The back is sitting where it's gonna sit. The front is, I know because I already did some measuring, but it's 1.5 inches too high. So I measured this in here. It's 7 inches from the frame up to the top of this second piece of wood. And this is 1.5 inches too high. So I need to come down. Basically, I need 5.5 inches between the frame and where it's sitting on the bed. So I have a piece of metal that I'll go get here in a second that slightly resembles this. And by slightly, I mean not at all, but slightly resembles that. And then I've got some 4x4 square tube that I'm gonna make some kind of mounts to do the thing. So I'm gonna probably roll the cherry picker out here and lift the bed off just so I'll just hang it and slide it back so that I can get my mount figured out, and then we'll go from there. So that's what we're doing. All right, I'm gonna measure across here. And that's gonna give me my length that I'm gonna need for my cross brace. Exactly 72 inches. And I've got some material here that, like I said, is very similar to what's in the back but shorter. So I need to measure down. And get exactly 72 inches. I'll get that cut. This is going to go on top of the frame. This is going to sit on top of it, and that should give us our height that we need in the front. So yeah, that's about it. I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to cut these the same width as the frame, and then I'll show you what else we're going to do. But for right now, I need to get these cut, and we'll go from there. All right, I can say that I got a little bit of work done without filming, but it's not anything like, oh my goodness, how'd he do that type deal. It's just, I got a little bit done. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get this bed square as I build my brace. And I started dinking around, and I had 4 holes, big slotted holes, in the frame that look like a bed should mount there, and the bed mounted there. So got those on. That should have the back of the bed squared up, hopefully. I don't know for sure yet. I'm finding out the more and more I do that this bed sat without, it only had this back brace and this brace and nothing up front except for the front panel. And it sat like that, and it sat upside down, and it got moved around, and it's cracked, and let's just say it's not square anymore. It's not true. So I'm trying to fight with it to get it back as true as possible, which getting these 4 holes lined up was a big deal. This piece here that holds this brace in was good. This one over here was bent darn near beyond recognition. I was able to get it out, straighten it up some, get it back in. Is it perfect? I doubt it, but it seems to be all right. So that's the point I'm at. I told you guys I was gonna cut some of this 4x4 square tube that I have. I cut 2 pieces, the width of the frame rail up there. I'll put those on top of the frame like that, zip zap, run them on. That's gonna be my spacers. And this is gonna be my new bed brace. So next thing I'm gonna do is take a measurement from inside corner of stake pocket to inside corner of stake pocket, and inside corner of stake pocket to inside corner of stake pocket, and make sure that the bed is square, because I need it to be square before I put that brace in, because if I stick that brace in with the bed like it is right now and it's not squared up and I bolt it together, then I got the whole bed mounted crooked already, and that's not gonna work. So I'm gonna take some measurements, make sure it's square. If it is, and I'm happy with where it's at and it's good, and I might figure out a way to keep it square for now or whatever. But if all that works out, I'm gonna put a jack down here with something underneath that front lip, and I'm gonna jack that up just a little bit to where I can get my board out and weld my spacers in. So that's one of the next big things on the agenda. Get that out, get the spacers in. Once we get the spacers in, we can start putting the bed brace in. Once we get the bed brace in, I think I might run 2 bed braces up front, because it probably should have 2. For right now, I think I can get by with 1 for the time being, and then I'll put another one in later, and I'll have to put something across the middle so when we put our floor down, which I haven't decided yet if it's gonna be wood, metal, plastic, carpet, nothing, I have no idea. So we'll figure that out when we get to that, but we'll figure bracing out when we get to that as well. So I'm going to do some measuring, make sure the bed is square, and if everything looks good, then we'll start making a bed brace. All right, well, I don't really know how to explain it, but I had something happen to me today on this project that I don't recall ever happening to me before. I'm not saying it hasn't, it probably has, but I don't remember. You know, you remember the good things and try to forget the bad ones, and I probably tried to forget and did. But anyways, I told you guys what I had going on for the risers and the front cross brace for the bed and all that, and that I was getting ready to make it. Well, I ran into like the worst case of writer's block. Like I was on the last chapter of the book with 2 pages to go and just forgot what the whole story was about. I could not put 2 things together to make one thing work for nothing. I mean, it just totally, I don't know. So it took me the last probably 4 hours, I'm gonna say, being honest, to do the 30-minute job of getting this bed squared up and mounted on here. And it's not 100%, but it doesn't need to be right now. So the bed's on. I got my risers welded in, through bolted into my riser, both sides. Got the bed sitting on it. I've got some spacers on both sides to get it to the right height, which obviously the wood's gonna fill that gap when it all gets put together, and the wood's gonna stiffen stuff up a lot too. But got that done. I don't remember if I told you or not earlier, but there was already 4 holes in the bed back here that kind of lined up with these braces. I had to mess with them just a little bit, but man, I fought this thing. Not really, like I didn't really fight the truck or fight putting it on. I fought the mental process of doing it, and like I said, I don't know why. I've had a lot of stuff going on lately. I've kind of been pushing myself harder than I need to. I might be, you know, like mentally tired or whatever they call it. I don't know. I'm not making excuses. I'm not trying to cry to you guys. I didn't film a whole lot of mounting the bed. Sorry. So I showed you guys what I got going on. I kind of showed you guys what I was doing so you had the idea. But anyways, that wasn't this whole video. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna mount the bed, hey, here you go. The cool part of this video is gonna be lowering it and putting these dually fenders on properly, like right. So that's the part I'm most looking forward to, and that's the part that's gonna be the most awesome. So now that I got the bed, man, that looks so much better with the bed mounted right, body lines all lined up everywhere. It still needs just a little bit of tweaking, but it's gonna, I'm putting like 2 more cross members in it and whatnot. But at least now it's where I can, you know, when I lower it, I'll know where the bed's sitting. So I'll know how much of the side of the bed I'm gonna have to cut out to clear the tires. It doesn't look like it's gonna be a whole lot. And I can now measure off this body line to this body line, and this body line to this body line, and get that fender leveled up. And I'll cut the tacks. I like where the front's sitting, so I'll probably leave that where it is, and I'm gonna cut this tack loose, and I'll raise this up so that the measure, so that it's even, so it's right. And then I'll tack it back on, and then we'll cut that fender down to what we need and put it on there. And yeah, so, but first we gotta lower it. But it's the end of the day. I'm mentally exhausted, and I think, and whatever, but I'm gonna go home, hang out with the kids and the wife, get some rest. I'll be back first thing tomorrow, ready to put the hammer down and win this race. So we'll see you in a little bit. All right, I'm back and I'm ready to get some stuff done. We got the part that kicked my butt out of the way, and now comes the part that I'm really excited about. I got old Evergreen jack back up, sitting on jack stands, so there's not much, if hardly any weight on the rear end, but the tires are still just touching the ground. And I've got the torch out. Y'all know what that means? We're about to cut some crap up. So I'm gonna come in here with the torch, cut out these U-bolts. If you saw the other videos, you know that these U-bolts are not DOT approved and extremely dangerous. That's okay, because we don't need them, because that axle is gonna go on top of that spring, and we're gonna have a whole different setup. So bang, bang, boom. Yeah, that's where we're at. I'm gonna cut those U-bolts and see what I gotta do. But cut the U-bolts, get the leaf springs out of the truck, and then we're gonna have to do some cleaning up on the rear end. I have some other spring perches that I cut off of a different rear end that we can weld onto this rear end. And yeah, we're just gonna keep moving. But first things first, we're gonna get this rear end cut loose, and then we're gonna flip it so it's sitting on top of the springs instead of underneath them. So I don't really like how that whole spring pack, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but that spring pack is like leaned forward. I don't know, it's just weird. Anyways, we're gonna cut and take stuff apart, and it's all gonna do what it does, and then we're gonna put it back together the right way, which is my way, or my way, which is the right way, or might not be the right way, but it's my way, and that's the way I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna get some crap together. We're gonna get cutting. First things first, I got my leaf springs pulled out, and now, like I've already mentioned, these overloads are coming off, which I'm pretty sure I've said before. These are like somebody took car leaf springs and just cut the eyelets off the end of them and then put these big spacer blocks in there, and yada 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 yada. It's all going away. I'm going down to the original spring pack. I'm going to true those up and make them the way they're supposed to be, bolt them back together, yada yada yada, and then we'll have a good set of springs. This thing's not made to be a tow haul truck. It's more of a, it's going to be a show truck. Honestly, I'm building it to drive it around, have fun with it, and take it to shows. So I'm not worried about hooking a big trailer to it or piling a bunch of weight in the bed. So I don't need the overloads, I don't need, you know, heavy duty springs, all that. It's just going to be a pavement pounder. So first thing I did here, man, there's a lot of spring here. I'm hoping you guys can see this, but I put an L there, and I also put an L down by the other eyelet, and I put R's on that side. That's left and right. I could have put D and R, or D and P, driver, passenger, whatever, but I know for me the left side's the driver's side, the right side is the passenger side, and I want to make sure I get the springs back on the side they came off of. And I just now looked at it, but it looks like I'm going to need a set of shackles because these bushings are shot. The front leaf spring bushings are fine, the shackle bushings are absolute garbage. So we'll worry about that when we get there. I can change those in the truck if I need to. We're just going to get some work done. Now, I mentioned before in the other videos, you guys haven't seen them. Why not? Go back and watch them. You're not going to know what the whole deal on this truck is if you start out here and see a shortbed dually with a bed on it. I mean, anyways, driver's side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leaves in the bottom. Passenger side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaves in the bottom. Anybody notice the problem there? Yeah, me too. One of these things is not like the other. So, why I got the spring pack apart, I'm going to take the extra spring, I'm going to cut these so I can drive the pins out. I'm going to leave these brackets on here to hold the springs together. Well, I'm going to have to take them off this one to take that spring out, but you guys get the picture, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, take it apart, take the extra spring out of this side. I'm going to make them so they're both the same. Whichever spring on this one is different from that one is the one that's going to come out. All the other crap's going to come off. And, yeah. You get what I'm saying? No, probably not, but yeah, you'll figure it out. So, anyways, torch, zip, zip, lay it down, take all the excess garbage off, take this apart, take that spring out. We'll get some new through bolts, bolt it all back together, and then we'll have our springs. Phase 1 of lowering the rear end will be done. I can pull those off, but before I get into really touching a bunch of stuff, I'm gonna let it cool off a little bit because it's hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and let these cool off. I'll get them all taken apart, and then I'll bring you guys back and show you what we're doing. All right. Remember when I said something about how it looked like the rear end was kind of off in the springs and stuff like that? Yeah. I think I know why they put these brackets on here to hold the springs together. You wanna know why? Because here's the bottom of the pin and here's the top of the pin. That doesn't exactly look right. But anyways, you look up here, we got 1, 2, 3 springs, 4 springs with a flat end. And then you look over here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 springs with a flat end. This is the extra leaf, and then we go to this, and we go to our heavy duty spring. So, this is the leaf that I'm going to be taking out, because that's the one that doesn't match. And I think I'm probably going to take this spring out on both sides, because that'll 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll still give me 5. So I'm going to take these 2 out of this one and 1 out of that one, because the less spring I have, the better ride I'm going to get. And if it ever does end up needing to tow something, I'll put some airbags on it. So technically, I'm pretty much just taking it back to a half-ton suspension. We can walk in here and look at old Shorty because it's the easiest one to see, and we'll count the springs on it. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's got 7. But it's 7 smaller springs, and it doesn't have the big heavy duty bottom spring. So 5 with the heavy duty bottom spring will be fine. If not, then it's my fault. But I'm kidding, it'll be fine. So we're gonna take this all apart and do what I just said. Get a new pin in it, get it cleaned back up, and then we'll pull the rear end out and start making the modifications that we got to make to it. Okay, I got our springs all done. We got our four leaves with the 5th heavy leaf, I guess you'd call it. I'm sure there's a name for them. I don't know what it is. I measured this thickness of the spring pack, and it's exactly the same as Shorty. It's designed a little different. Shorty's got an extra spring or 2 and doesn't have the thick ones at the bottom. This has the thick ones at the bottom and only has 4 leaves, but they're both 2 inches. So I've got saddles that I cut off of Rum Runner. Yeah, Rum Runner. Got those cleaned up so they can weld to the rear end. And I got the rear end cleaned up where it can be welded to. So now I've got some U-bolts sitting here too, and they're off of a 12 bolt, and this has a little bit thicker axle tubes. I'm gonna still try to make them work, but I don't know if they will. And I don't have any other U-bolts here right now, so we're gonna do what we can do. But I'm gonna try to get the camera set up where you guys can see what I'm doing. And I'm gonna get under here and try to hang the springs and get the rear end set back on it, get the springs hung all the way. And once we get the springs hung and the axle sitting on top of it, our centering bolts in our springs are going to keep this from moving. The weight of the axle is going to hold it down on it, and we should be able to pivot it to get our degrees and our angle that we need it to be at. Once we get that, it would be nice to have U-bolts to tighten it down. But even if we can't, I can still tack weld those purchase onto the axle, and that'll make it so all it needs is U-bolts when I get some. But I think that's about it. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to set a camera up here somewhere, shining in there, so you guys can see what I'm doing. And then I'm gonna try to get that rear end rehung. So we'll see what happens. Okay. First thing I'm gonna do is take the rear of the spring and hang it back in my spring perch off my shackle, and try to let my spring lay down underneath the rear end, because then I can get a jack underneath the rear end, jack the rear end up, and I'll be able to just lift the front of my spring up and put the bolt in it, and then we'll have it on the springs. So I'm gonna get the springs over here, get the backs hung, and then we'll work on getting the rear end on them. That wasn't too bad. First one. You guys remember when I first took the springs out, I marked them so I knew which one went on which side when I got done. And just in case anybody's trying to catch me in a screw up, I did pay attention and put them back on the same side. So, I'm sure you can catch me in plenty of screw ups, but not today. Okay, so this side is coming way up, so I'm gonna go ahead and get over here and get the saddle, the perch underneath this side, and try to get the front of this spring hung, and then I'll be able to let the jack down and it'll sit on it, and I'll be able to come over to this side with the jack and jack just this side up. So, here we go. Alright, got that side kind of, sort of, maybe somewhere close. See if I can get some more height. Let me get this under there. Alright. And try to get the other spring up first. See how that goes. Now we're getting somewhere. I don't know where, but we're getting somewhere. Alright guys, I don't know if I made it easier on myself or harder on myself or what, but I couldn't get the rear end to go far enough forward because the tires were hitting the bed. Now, I knew I was going to have to trim this anyways because we're going so low. So, holy heavy. I think in my old age I've got enough wisdom to use the jack on this side, because that was not the feelings I wanted to have with myself today. So the big thing is getting this on there and in the right spot, and then we'll figure out what we got to do as far as cutting wheel wells out and stuff like that. I knew I was gonna have to cut them anyways. If you guys have a dually or ever get to see a dually, if you get down and look underneath the dually fenders, it's not just a normal like stock fleet side bed with a fender bolted on it. It's actually trimmed up and cut out and patched so that everything works like it's supposed to. Tires don't rub, yada 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 yada. And so I knew I was gonna have to do that to make this right. So I'm not concerned with that part. I just have to see how much I got to cut, because that rear end's sitting down like really far right now, and if I can get it to where we can lift it up, and we can see where our center's gonna be at ride height. Okay. Still ain't sitting right. Because the axle needs to be rotated, which should be easy now that we've got everything sitting where it needs to. I guess that's going to be it for right this second. It's getting close to football time for my son, so I don't know if I'm going to get anything else done today or not. But we're not giving up. We'll keep going. Okay, so I was trying to get the rear end bolted down to the leaf springs and trying to use U-bolts that I had, which none of them would work. Went over to my buddy's house that parts out a lot of stuff. He didn't have any U-bolts that would work, and I got really frustrated and went home for the day. So now it's Sunday. My wife's not very happy because she doesn't like me working weekends, but I'm getting a video out Tuesday one way or another, and I've got a long way to go to finish this video. So we're here, we're doing what we do. So before I show you guys this, and everybody's like hitting that comment bar, lighting me up, telling me about how I can't do that, and I'm gonna, if I drive this truck or whatever the case may be, this is temporary. It's only for mock-up purposes. I have to order U-bolts. I don't have the money to do it right now, but I know exactly which ones I need, and so don't worry about it. This is just a temporary solution so I can keep moving forward in the right direction. So I got some 1/2 inch all thread, put a plate on the top, plate on the bottom, got everything squared up, tightened it down, and we have our rear end mounted. And it is jacked up as high as it'll go before it starts picking the whole truck up. Now, excuse me, if you've ever lowered a truck before, or you've ever watched me lower a truck, when you put the flip kit brackets on, there's 2 holes. There's the one in the center, and then there's one 1.5 inches forward. That's because when you bring the axle up to the top, it moves the axle forward if you put it back in the same centering pin. So you need to move it back that 1.5 inches to recenter the axle. Well, I went through all this work and got this rear end in here, and guess what Aaron didn't do? I took spring perches that, like you saw, that I cut off of another rear end, and I stuck them in there. Got all excited because this whole lowering the truck and getting the rear end bolted back in and everything, that's a speed bump on my trip to being able to mount those fenders. Like that's, I'm itching to get them fenders put on. Like I'm excited about the process of doing it. I'm excited to see what it looks like when they get done. I'm in like, let's put some fenders on this thing mode. But I can't put fenders on until I've got the rear end set at ride height and the tires on, because I'm gonna have to trim the bed for the dual wheels because it's made for a single rear wheel that'll sit inside of it, so the wheel can go up in the fender well and it doesn't matter. Well, on a dually wheel, you got both wheels, the side of the bed will come down and hit on the tires. So you have, I'm gonna have to relieve it, clearance it, and put a panel in there or whatever, and then put my fender on, and it'll cover it all. You won't ever see it. But so I got to get the rear end set perfect, and then mark the bedside, cut it out, and then we can start doing our fenders. So I'm just giving you guys a little update. I know I haven't been great about filming this process of lowering the rear end. It's been fighting me. Mounting the bed was fighting me. Everything up to this point has been fighting me, but I'm not giving up. I'm excited about getting a fender put on, so that's what we're gonna do. In the meantime, I'm gonna go pop these perches back off, hopefully pretty simply, one at a time, and drill them, put them back in, bolt our rear end back down, remeasure my wheel base, because that's where I'm at. I've measured it about 16 times and it's not been right, and I couldn't figure out why, but now I remember that needs to be moved. So I'll drill those, put them back in, make sure my wheelbase is right, and then we should be where we need to be, and everything will go good. So you guys hang tight. This is gonna be like a boom and I'm done. For you guys, it's gonna be a monotonous, annoying project that I don't really want to do for me, but I'm gonna get those drilled and I'll bring you guys back and we'll carry on to the fun stuff. All right, got it moved back to where it's supposed to be. Went ahead and got this tire put on, jacked the jack all the way up to where it was starting to lift it off the jack stands. So I know it's got all the weight that it's gonna have on it, and it's sitting at ride height. So now, as you can see, we probably got about, I can't even fit my finger in between the tire and the bedside, which is no bueno. We'll be dragging tire all the time. But we knew that. So what we're gonna have to do is, I think I need about 5 inches probably for suspension travel. So I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna measure from the top of the tire up 5 inches, which, you know, like I said, I've lied about measurements my whole life, so I'm gonna say it's probably about right there, but we'll use a tape measure so we're not doing the probably thing. And then I'll figure out some kind of deal to where I can make a radius around there and a radius around there. And then we'll get some power tools out and start cutting some stuff, because we like to get power tools out and cut stuff. So I'm gonna go and put together a little tool to do what I need to do. And when I get that little tool done, I will show it to you and show you how it works. So here we go. Okay, so of course right when I get ready to do this, the wind picks up, but hopefully it's not killing you guys too bad. What I have here is a highly engineered, well thought out, no, not really. It's just a piece of metal, put a point on it, drill the hole in it. Said hole is perfect size for a Sharpie. So I'll take this like so. I got it so the Sharpie can go in and out to match body lines and differences and whatever else. And I'll just run this point along the tire and we'll get our mark. And I'm sure you guys have already figured this part out, but for the ones that are still trying to do the math in their head, I measured from the point to the center hole, and that's the 5 inches that I need. So once I do this, I'll have a 5-inch radius all the way around the tire, which is what I should need for clearance for my suspension. So let's do it. And honestly, I don't even have to drag it around the tire because the tire is going to turn for me. So I can just hold it straight and turn the tire. Maybe. Sounds like a good idea. Alright, is it perfect? No. Do we care? No. Never going to see this. It's going to be inside our dually fender. The main purpose is our tire doesn't get cut on our fender. And I mean, like I showed you, I can't even fit my finger in there. So that's a problem. So, does it look like it kind of did what it was supposed to do? Yes. So, now we're going to get out a cutoff wheel and zip through this. And then we're going to go, heck yeah, we're done. And then we're going to go, oh crap, we're not, because there's an inner lip here too. And we're going to have to get in there and cut that out also. So, you guys know me, I hate sparks and stuff. And honestly, I would much rather use a jigsaw to cut this. But I don't think I'm going to be able to. Yeah, no, I'm not going to be able to because of that inner structure. it hit and caused me a whole bunch of grief. Another problem that I have is the front rear. I know that doesn't make any sense, but the forward rear bed mount has a bracket that's made that comes into this wheel opening and bolts on there and all that, and that's what holds that bed brace. So I'll go ahead and cut the outside lip and get it out of the way if we can, and then I'll have to do some structural support back there on that and figure it out before I cut the inside. But what we have to do is cut this, and then we'll have to plate. We don't have to, but we're going to. We'll plate the inside, you know, join the inner and the outer together to get that bed structure back. And then after that, we'll be able to set our dually fender up there and start on that. So let's get to cutting. Put this in a safe spot so we know where it's at, and then once we get the fender in and welded up and all that, then we'll put that back on. I'm still looking for another set of those. I need 2 more for the front of the fenders. So if you got some old front fenders laying around, or an old bed laying around, or whatever, and you're willing to cut those pieces out and send them to me, let me know. I will buy them from you, or trade you a t-shirt for them, or whatever you want, but I need them, so let me know. Alright, I'm going to take you guys on a little vacation here, and we'll pick back up over there. Okay, I don't have a yardstick like our teachers used to do, so I'm just going to use my my tape measure as a pointer here. And as you can see, our line comes up and it just about meets up with this pretty good. Now, obviously that's not rounded and all that jazz, but if I measure up from the top of our tire right here, 5 inches is just above this lip. So what I'm going to do for now is cut along this inner lip, this inside of this bend here, and then we're going to have 1/4 to 1/2 inch more that we're going to have to trim, but at least for now I can get this out of the way and be able to get in here and see better. So I'm going to crawl in there. Honestly, when I'm leaning on it, stuff changes, so that might be 5 inches anyways. We'll figure that part out, but I'm going to go ahead and cut along here. I'm going to leave this because the little bend there and whatnot has some structure. We don't want to make the bed too flimsy before we get it back together. So zip. That's what we're doing. If I can get my old butt up in here. Alright, I'm gonna go get the stuff. Don't give me too hard of a time, guys. I hurt my back when I wrecked that truck in April and haven't got it fixed yet, so she ain't doing so hot. Maybe someday I'll go get her fixed up and be back to not much better than I am right now. That's why you always wear gloves and safety glasses, boys and girls. Felt a little of it hit me in the face, but at least it wasn't in my eye. I'll go get another disc. I'll be right back. And as we change this disc, do as I say, not as I do. I always make sure you unplug your grinder when you change your disc out. I'm not, because I'm stupid and lazy, and I don't want to go all the way over there to unplug it and then come all the way over here to change the disc and then go all the way back over there to plug it back in, because I'm lazy. Back to the drawing board. Got some cleanup and some trimming and all that stuff to do, but now when I take you guys back over on the other side, you'll be able to see, like I said, it's not too far off. I'm gonna have to trim a little bit, but it all seems fairly close in some spots, not so much in others. But we'll go back over, we'll look at the other side, and we'll start figuring out what we're gonna do to clean it up and reattach that and put in there for a filler piece. So here we go. Okay, well, I set the rear end on jack stands and finally got it down off of that jack that I had it like taking all of the weight off up top. Brought it down. I went ahead and marked the inside there where I need to cut it. I don't think I'm going to use the big cutoff wheel like I did on this side, because I think it'll be easier to take the tire off, since I only got 2 lug nuts holding it on, and just get my small air cutoff wheel in there and just buzz. I can basically use the opposing side of the blade on the straight cutoff wheel as my line to help me out. So that's the next thing we got to do. We're going to cut that down, trim that inside to where it matches like it needs to, and then we're going to weld in filler from basically the body line to the body line, because that's where it had inner structure before and didn't have anything down below that. So we'll get to that, get it done first thing in the morning. So tomorrow is my last day to finish this video, to have it up on schedule, and we still have to patch that hole. I know I said we weren't going to do it, but I thought about it and I need to quit being lazy and just do it. Patch that hole, fill that gap, trim that fender, mount it. That's my goal for this video, is to get this side close to done. I'm not going to say it's going to be all the way welded in. I'm not going to say the welds are going to be ground down, but the fender is going to be fitted properly and welded on. If not all the way on, it's going to be pretty dang close to welded all the way on. So we're making progress. We're getting there. Back of the truck's lowered. Things are looking good. Like I said earlier, it's Sunday. My wife's got some stuff she needs to do, and believe it or not, she finally realized I wasn't there. So took a while, not surprising. But I'm gonna go and go home and spend the rest of the day with my little girl and my family. And yeah, first thing in the morning, hammer down. All right, it's the next morning. I've been out here working my butt off, trying to get done some of the, you guys don't want to sit here and watch a time lapse on this stuff done. And I've made it to that point. So I'm going to show you guys what I've done so far, and then show you what I'm about to do. So first things first, got it cleaned up around here so we can put our patch in where that light was. And I went ahead and cleaned up around all these holes so that we can fill them in, because we're not going to use them. I'm trying to grind off as little as possible, because I want to leave the patina maybe I want to try to match the patina on the cab and the front clip so that everything's evergreen. I haven't fully decided yet. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth today, but after I got that done, I went ahead and got the inner trimmed the rest of the way up with a cutoff wheel like I said I was going to. And then it's really windy and you guys probably can't hear me, but I went ahead and just barely ground the edge all the way around, and I got those holes up there too. And then I ground on the inside. So now the next thing I'm gonna do is start making a template. And I'll make a template to fill in here, and we'll go all the way up and around. And because there's no support for this fender, which is supposed to be like out here, I'm gonna go ahead and run this all the way down where it's supposed to be. And then having this inner lip here should help strengthen that up. As you might be able to see, I don't know if you can tell or not, but that's bent up. So I need to get a hammer and dolly and pound that straight, and that should relieve that fender back closer to where it wants to be. And then I can put my filler piece in there, and once I get my filler piece in, then I can start showing you guys how we're gonna hang a fender. Now, there's something I wanted to show you guys for multiple reasons. One thing, if you noticed it and you're like, what in the heck is he doing? That's screwed up. Then here's your explanation. Second is, I got a reasoning for why you don't want to do what I did. And well, this is the reason to not do what I did, but just fill you guys in and tell you. But if you look over at that side, I put that tire on and you see that it's touching the fender in the front. And you may remember before I cut this other side, we had an inch gap between the fender and the tire. Well, I spent probably 2 to 3 hours trying to figure out why that was, because it ended up being the last thing that I thought about checking, because I just imagined that that could never be it. So I started doubting myself, and I was rechecking all my frame measurements. What did I do? Did I cut it wrong? Did I screw up? This and that, this and that, this and that. Well, remember when I told you guys that I took the old spring perches that I cut off a rum runner and put them on here, and then I drilled the holes to set the axle back and all that? Well, yeah. When I cut those spring perches off of the rear end on rum runner, I just took a torch and cut it. Well, they're not the same. They're about a 1/4 inch different. 1/4 inch difference turns into a dang inch, and that's jammed up against the, it's not jammed up, I can still spin the tire, you can see some light through there, but it's almost touching the fender. And it's all because of the spring perches, and because I don't have the right U-bolts yet, and I'm using this all thread and stuff, and it's just not keeping it square. So I have to order new perches. I already ordered new U-bolts, so once I get everything good to go, then it'll true that axle up, and we'll be fine. So I think I'm gonna wait. I don't know if I'm gonna wait until I get the axle squared up and then do that side the same way I did this side, or if I'm just gonna make a template off of this side and cut that side. I don't know. Either way, right now we're working on this side. I just wanted to explain that and tell you guys, don't be cheap like me, because it'll end up burning your butt like this. And anyways, we figured it out. We'll get it fixed. But for now, I'm gonna get some template paper, start making a template for this. All right, it's just poster board. I go to the dollar store, it's like 50 cents a piece. I get sheets of poster board, works great for making templates, and it's inexpensive. So I cut 3 strips because a piece of paper is not big enough to do this whole loop anyways, and I don't really want to do this whole deal in one piece anyways. So I cut some strips that are wider than I need it to be. I'm going to start down here in the back, which I might not be able to do now that I just noticed. Yeah, I will. Okay, so start here And that's all I'm going to be able to get out of this one. So we'll hold this here. I'll just trace this. There's going to be our first piece. Now, rather than thinking that I'm doing a really good job and making these all the same and putting them in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this piece out on paper. I'm going to trace it onto my metal. I'm going to cut it out of my metal, and I'm going to go ahead and put this filler piece in. Done. Then I'll get another one of my pieces here, and we'll do the next piece and then the next piece, and go that way, because otherwise, if I think I have all my pieces right and go to put them in, that's when you make a mistake and it's not right. So I'm going to cut this out. We'll trace it on our metal, cut it out in our metal, and get started. Okay, I know I'm bouncing all over the place in this video, and yeah, I'm bouncing all over the place in this video. So a couple things have happened since I showed you I was making templates to fill in between the inner and outer skin of the bed. My buddy stopped by to see how I was doing, see how things were going, and since I had somebody here to help me, I went ahead and mocked the fender up there and tacked it on, because that was going to be the next step after we put the filler piece in there, which I'm still going to put the filler piece in before I attach the fender, but brain stopped working. But I gonna have to cut this fender off and do it again, because it's way lower than it's supposed to be. Like way lower than it's gonna be. Because, yeah. Alright, well, I'll show it to you now, but it can't stay where it is. It's entirely too low. And if we have it that low, then it's gonna drag on the ground when I put the tire on. It's supposed to be even with the bottom of the bed, which I thought it was even with the bottom of the bed, but it's not. So I need to raise it up about 2 inches, which hopefully I can do by myself without a lot of fuss. So I'm gonna try to get that raised up, and then I'll start this conversation over with you guys. And yeah. Okay, I got the fender back on where I want it. Now the bottom should be pretty close to even with the bottom of the bedside, original bedside. And that's what we needed. So I was just off a little bit, went back, fixed it. Also, I mentioned earlier that there was like a dent over here in the bed, and it was rolling that side under, especially after I cut it. If I remember, I'll show you guys in a little bit, but I took a piece of all thread that I had left over from doing the axle mount, cut it to the right length, and I just welded it in, just tack welded it in between the frame and the fender here, or the bedside here, just to make it right. So then I went and got my patent pending tool that I made yesterday for the wheel opening, and drilled another hole we want to take 6 inches out of this fender. So from this tip to the center of this hole is exactly 6 inches. Put my marker in it. Then I'll come down here like so. And we'll just grab the other camera. I'll show you guys the side view of it, what it looks like. I'll show you how I fixed that fender to hold it in place out there. And then once we do that, we'll go ahead and I'll cut the tack welds that I put on there to hold the fender, the new fender on. Take it off and then we can cut it. But before we weld it on, I have to patch the hole where the light used to be over here, and I need to work on my inner structure there. So I'm going to take a marker and I just want to mark on the bed exactly where the fender is right now, because when I put it back on, actually I shouldn't even need to do that, because of the shape it should only sit in one spot. So we'll just do that and see how it goes. Okay, so here it is. There's my line. I use my little homemade scribe. It's off a little bit. I know it's the outside line all the way back, all the way down, and then the bottom portion of this fender is going to come all the way in here. And then maybe, if I am capable and have time, I'm going to make a roll pan that connects the fenders all the way across. But in order to do that, I'd need a tailgate, and I don't have one of them, so it's all down the road. And I told you I'd tell you, in here I just took a piece of all thread. I measured at the front what it needed to be, cut a piece of all thread to the same length, tack welded it in there. That's holding the bedside out where I need it. So yeah, it's time to cut tacks off, get the fender out of the way, and then we'll get back to filling our stuff in there and keep going. Okay, so I got this piece all trimmed out. I already went ahead and got a couple tacks on it, and it's sitting in there now. For right now, and quite possibly permanently, I'm not gonna solid weld this. I'm gonna go through, I want to get it in and make sure it's straight. And then I'll go back about every inch or so and put a good tack on it. And that'll be good for now. And that might be good forever. We'll just see how it goes and see what we get back to. Okay, it's been a little while, but I got all of our filler in, and I went ahead and ground a little bit just so there's no sharp spots on the outside of the bed. I can do the inside later on. So I went ahead and put the patch in where the tail light was. It's not the greatest. I'm getting tired, but at least the part behind the fender is welded up. I ground it down. I can do the rest later when I feel more like doing it, and I'm not rushing trying to get anything done. And after the fender's already on, I got a lot more body work I got to do on this thing, so that's just part of it. Not a big deal. So now we're gonna go over here and start hacking. I haven't decided how I want to cut it. I thought about a cutoff wheel. I've thought about jigsaw because I can get the radius down here better, and the radius down here better, but the jigsaw is really slow. So I think what I might do is get the jigsaw out and try to cut. I'm just going to cut it with the cutoff wheel, and I'll leave extra where the radius is, and I'll come back with a jigsaw and trim the radius. So I'm going to get set up. I'm gonna cut up this fender. We'll be ready to slap it on the truck. Here we go. I just want to get it up there, make sure that it's gonna fit like we planned, and then wow, look at that. That is beautiful. I can't get back over to see the back while I'm holding up the front. Since the front's looking really good, I had it clipped on here earlier, but I can't clip it there anymore because I filled that. So what I'm going to do is clean that up a little bit, and then I'll get that front up there and just get one tack on it, because with one tack I should still be able to move it a little bit. So we'll get that cleaned up. We'll get a little tack on the front. We'll get the back where it needs to be, and then we'll get a little tack on the back, and then we'll commence getting a lot of tacks on this thing to hold it on. Everything's looking good, except for, oh wait, that fell right where I needed it to now. Try something. looking good. Hopefully you guys can see this some shape or form. I like it a lot. Alright, well, I'm going to do a little, what's the fancy word? Montage of me tacking this all up. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to without jacking this thing up and all that. But I'll try to get a tire in there so we can get the full effect. So, here we go. Alright, well, I took a couple minutes to look at it. I love it. And okay. Strobe for effect. I took a couple minutes to look at it, and I'm not gonna say that I cleaned up because that would be a lie, but I got everything inside the shop so I can close and lock the door because I gotta get home. But man, this is crazy. Like, I had this vision in my head since I saw I saw this truck and I knew it was for sale, and then I saw this bed and I knew that I could get it, and I just the magical thing started happening, and I seen the vision I wanted, and it's here. It looks really, really cool. The only other thing that would make this look better, no, I'm just kidding. There ain't nothing that would make this look better. I really like it. So here it is. Looks sick. Absolutely love it. Everything lines up good. Got it following the bed so it caches out underneath there. Back lines up good. I think I'm going to, this right here was brought out so it was flat, so a light could go right there. I think I may cut this off and just try to roll the fender in there. We'll see what happens, but it rolls down as you guys saw when I was trying to get it lined up. This was off, so I just went and blindly cut it, so I got a little bit of work I got to do down here. But when I blindly cut it, bringing it up to where it was touching was actually perfect. So I got a good amount of tacks in it. The fender's actually a little bit further forward than we had it before, and I'm not sure how that happened because I lined up. No, I didn't. I thought I was lining up on the welds. Yeah, I was. I lined up on the welds that were already there. But somehow it got further forward. When I had it on there earlier, this was back here. But I kind of like it where it's at now. It's not too late to cut it off and move it back a little. But I kind of like it where it's at. Like, if you take a measurement of the center of the wheel opening, I'm talking from the bottom of the slant to the bottom of the slant, the tire's dead center. Might look a little bit better if the tire was a little bit further forward, but I still have to correct the other side with the spring perches and stuff like I showed you, and when I bring that side back, it's gonna bring this side forward just a little bit, not much, but just a tad. So I took out the perfect amount of fender. I've got like, I can barely fit my fingers in between the tire and here. So that's gonna be good, because we won't, if we got any little bit of sideways play, it won't hurt anything. But man, I love it. So that's gonna do it for this. We're gonna call this part 1. Part 2, I will more than likely already have the other side done. Since I showed you guys how I did this one, I think I'm just gonna bang this other side out so you don't have to watch it again. And then I'm going to do our lights like I talked about. We still have to do inner tubs. I still have to build another cross member and maybe put something in the middle so that the wood's got something to sit on. And I gotta put like bed braces from the bed sides up to the cross braces, because I got the extra weight and stuff on them now, so I need those supported. I'm gonna have to do that. There's still quite a bit of work I gotta do on the bed, and that's why I'm telling you that it's gonna be part 2, because this is part 1, and then we'll finish up the bed, except for the wood floor, probably in the next video. Not the next video to come. The next video to come is probably gonna be Mr. Marlboro Man right here, but the next time we get back on this one, it's gonna be part 2 of the bed, which will be very soon. So don't get depressed and think it's gonna be down the road. It's gonna be in the next week or so. So if you guys haven't already, go check out my website, harmongarage.net. I got 3 brand new exclusive t-shirt designs up there, and they're ready to go. And I've got 2 more designs that I'm gonna be dropping, let's say 2 weeks. I'll drop 2 more designs that are pretty neat, that I've had before and people really liked. So I'm gonna drop them for a little bit. And then November 1st, there will be sweatshirts. I haven't decided if I wanna do pullover hoodies or zip up hoodies. I personally like zip up hoodies, but I know a lot of people prefer pullover. Maybe I'll do both. Leave me a comment, let me know what you guys want. But go check out harmongarage.net. Get yourself some awesome merch. And make sure you comment. Let me know what you think about what I got going on here. If you're not subscribed, please do. You don't want to miss what else is going to happen to this project, because this is one of the small ideas. This thing's going to be huge. Well, it's going to be little, but you get the idea. Leave me a comment, hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.